So I'll call the East Lyme Board of Selectmen special meeting to order. This is a special meeting, it's a budget review meeting that starts at 5:30 here on February 20th, 2019, which is in front of our regular meeting, which will start at 7:30, and we'll have a separate agenda. If you'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. I'll find it.
Again, this is a budget meeting. Tonight's budgets are in front of you, mostly coming from Public Works and the various departments that Joe and Bill and Victor oversee. And so we'll just kind of jump right into it, gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Again, Joe, you have one of the more complicated budgets in our entire book because there's so much to it, and your responsibilities are far and wide. Everything from public works to building maintenance to IT to all sorts of different things. So we can start up at the top at 317.
Correct.
Okay. Why don't you, Joe?
So what I'm going to
Run
do is
through it.
I'll just kind of go down the highlights of any changes from past years or any notable things on specific line items. When I go through them, I'll kind of call out the line items so everyone's on the same page of where we're at. So as you'll see with all the budgets that you're going to hear, we take great pride and effort in trying to bring the bottom line as low as possible while still providing valuable services to our residents. And the Department 317 is a good example of that. So as proposed, this budget is only up $38,000 or 1% from last year's amended budget. And we are proposing an additional $60,000 in revenue. So this actually has a net negative. This budget is coming in less than last year's. Going through the line items, right from the top, if you look at personal services, line 211, it's listed as highway supervisor of public, PWD office manager. It's always kind of what it's been called. It's really the 75% of my salary. And the reason this is going down is it's also 60% of the deputy director's salary. That was 75% in this current fiscal year. The reason I'm dropping at 15% is the duties and the projects that are going on in the water sewer side. We're reallocating more of the deputy's salary towards the utilities, and that will be covered in the utility budget, which is separate from the town. The regular payroll item, line 100-311, it's showing as amended on the far. Do they have the amended? Okay, it's showing a 3.28% adopted budget. It's really a 1.65% increase from amended. What I mean by that is that the 3.28 is actually 2 years of salary increases because of the union negotiations were being negotiated. And the reason I say that is that we did work with two longer tenured employees in the highway department this year and worked with them on they ended up retiring, and we were able to bring in two newer people at a much less of a cost, which is going to be saving us in this coming year's budget, which we do appreciate those people that were been here for all those years, but when you can hire newer people in at a lower rate, it certainly helps the budget. The road repair line item in 200 services contracted operations, line 224, road reconstruction and repair, is decreasing by $17,500. It's not because we don't need the money. Again, it gets back to the fact I'm really trying to keep a really tight rein on this budget so that we can keep that any kind of increases to a minimum. The next line right under it, tree warden, line 239, I'm increasing by $10,000. As you probably see as you drive around town, especially in the northern end of town, the gypsy moth devastation over the last few years is like there's so many dead trees. We have a real big uptick in the calls that come into not only our department but directly to the tree warden. So I want to make sure we put a proper amount in there to cover it so we can address those safety issues. Keep going down to the next one, 210 services. The recycling line, well, first of all, I'll address 295, the SCARA tipping fee. That is what it is. It's hard to guess exactly how much is going to get tipped, the tipping fee at Preston, but we're tracking this year to be around 590, 591. I figured the amount of tonnage, so that's why that increase. Line 296, the bulky waste, it's actually one of the biggest components that I want to make sure not only the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, as we go through this process to understand what's going on there. Right now, when you go to the transfer station, if you ever see, there's all those roll-offs, the 40-yard big cans and stuff like that. And we probably have about 7 of them up there. We don't own any of those, so they're all Willimantic Waste. They pick up, they average about 240 pickups every year, and we get charged $140 a pickup. So we're spending about $36,000, $37,000 a year just having Willie Waste pick these things up. Now, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to migrate to getting our own lift. I call it a hook truck, a truck where it's a cabin chassis on a truck that you can put a hook down and it picks up the roll-off and puts it in and for us to drive up.
A roll-off's like a big dumpster, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And the reason being, it's like, oh, well, why do we want to do it as opposed to them? There's a few benefits. I'm trying to get, if you're not aware of this, the recycling truck that picks up everyone's recycling, we pick up recycling every other week in town. Every day that truck that picks up recycling drives to Willimantic every day. And those trucks cost $300,000. They're double the cost of these hook trucks. And we're driving that truck up to Willimantic, putting all kinds of wear and tear, time. We're taking away from our recycling collection because we have to run up to Willimantic to make that lift. So I'm trying to migrate away from having our frontline automated loader trucks driving an hour or 2.5 hours a day, keep it in town. And then they can just, our automated loader can just run up to the transfer station, dump it in a roll-off, and then we can bring it up there on our time. So I could have that truck running, three loads a day. If we ever get behind, we can pick it up. So we're trying to migrate to having our own truck that we're going to save money right off the get-go by able to not getting charged $140 a lift, and we're not driving our more expensive truck up there. So from a gas standpoint, for us driving it up, we're still driving up there anyways, so that's kind of a wash. The area towns, other area towns, Waterford has one, Stonington has one, New London has these trucks. We're the only ones that really don't have one of these, so it makes a lot of sense. So this is an interesting thing because we're actually trying to buy a vehicle, and I have it in there for $108,000 through vehicle acquisition, but I want to fund it through operating. Typically, that's always funded through. So that's the. In a long story short, that's the $40,000 more from 100 to 140 is I'm looking to fund this truck through that line. And then once we procure the truck, I'm going to start saving money right off the bat because I'm not going to be spending $140 for every pull out of Willimantic Waste. That's kind of a big one. So if you do have questions now or if you want to talk, but that's the gist of it. And that's why I also bumped up the recycling and miscellaneous disposal is just to give ourselves a buffer of how this is going to work in the first year. But the whole recycling market is changing. We used to get paid $5 a ton for recycling, and now it's going to be a cost, but it looks like that cost is going to get picked up by SCARA. I'm the vice president of SCARA now, and we've been heavily negotiating, trying to figure out and trying to minimize the impact on towns for this whole recycling thing. But if you look at the news, recycling is like costing towns now and not a revenue source. So that's why the 40,000 more in the bulky waste. If you continue, to the next page, the storm materials number 440 is dropping. It shows a 5.28% decrease. The reason for that, I'm still projecting to buy the same amount of salt. It's just that the cost, we go through the Capital Region Council of Governments to procure it, and the cost of salt is going down. So I'm able to purchase it or project it to be a lesser cost. So that's why that's going down. Fleet fuel is showing to go down 9.9%. And Mr. Nickerson and Anna, we're very familiar with this the last few months of me watching the fuel the fuel markets and so that, but we were able to jump in on the fuel at, it looked like just about the low point, so we're locked in for all the town's supply of fuel at, it's 19% less on unleaded and 10.4% less on diesel for next year's supply. So not only is this budget going to go down, but the Board of Ed's fuel costs should go down. The fire departments, which is not on this line, fuel should go down, the cost of it, and also the water and sewer, which isn't what we're specifically talking about it, but it's the other pocket that people pay from. So that was good that we were able to hop on that. 400 utilities, the street lights. I am showing a 6.19% increase. Since we purchased the streetlights, we have incurred a little more costs, and the biggest incurred cost that you couldn't really project at the time was all these. If you notice around town, Eversource is replacing almost like every utility pole. I mean, they're replacing them all over the place. Every single time they replace a pole that has a streetlight, I have to pay, I think it's $209 every single time to swap it over. So I have to put that in there to absorb it. We're still on track because we purchased the street lights and then retrofitted them. We're still on track in another 4 years to have a significant savings in this line. So it still was the right thing to do. We still have better light out there for the residents. I just have to make sure I put in the right amount so that we can cover those additional maintenance costs that we didn't really weren't able to really speculate. And then the last, I have Town Aid Road, it's the same amount. I went through the expenditures, but on the bottom of this page that you have in front of you is the revenues. And because I came in front of this board last year and increased the fees at the transfer station, and it wasn't just to whack people, it was to actually set the price of the fees at the transfer station commensurate with what's really costing us. Actually, we were undercharging people before. So those fees are now coming in, like we should have another $50,000 in revenue more than we thought, and I was able to put in an additional $60,000 in revenue into next year's budget comfortably. We're also getting very good deals on our scrap metal because of the way we put those contracts together. So all in all, the net for this budget, which is a $3.7 million budget, the net on this budget is actually $13,000 less than last year if you take into account the $60,000 additional revenue. So I think that's pretty good for the services that we provide, between the garbage, between drainage, between the paving and everything like that. One other comment that Anna had let me know that is in your notebook, but I do have in your notebook. Yeah, it's the colored sheet. We also made a good deal on color copies, so we don't have to pay a lot in color nowadays, so I wasn't afraid to do it. But this is in your package. It's a 3-page thing. What this is, because I guess it comes under 3017, is the bond. And we're not talking about this bond particularly tonight, but since this is in there, I'll just explain it, is that this is all our road work that's going to compose the $950,000 road bond. But one of the things that I should have explained better last year when I went through the process is I take the road bond of the $950, I add in the Town Aid Road, the $340. It's all on the second page. The last page of summary. I take the road bond money, I add the Town Aid Road money, I total it together, and that's all the work, and it's detailed, broke down at every dollar how we're going to spend that money. So, so that not only the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance can say, okay, you got a $950,000 road bond, you have $340,000 Town Aid Road, how are you planning on using it? So that's all in there for if anyone has any specific questions on the budget 317.
So we'll open it up for questions. Joe, it's as usual, this is my 5th budget, I can't believe it already. And each year, if I say I'm amazed, it sounds a little sugar-coated, but it truly is amazing what you can do with a budget that's truly decreasing, because again, you have revenue coming in. So once again, you have a decreasing budget, and you're putting services out onto the to the taxpayers that are well served. So thank you. You work
Thank you.
really hard on this and the water and sewer budget, and it's quite a skill that you've developed. So thank you again. Are there any questions on this budget? Mr. Daigle, I'll start down there. I don't want
Just the,
to put you on the spot.
line item 311, you said the amended increase was 1.65. Do we know what the dollar value is for that instead of 1.3 million?
Well, the
And do you have those numbers?
Yeah, but, so on, I didn't bring it with me, but the 2020 budget is still that 1.3 million. The column that changed is the 2019 amended. Remember the last meeting we approved advances?
Understood.
Okay, that's what
Right.
that is, yeah.
So the number that you guys are seeing, the 3.28%, sounds like, and that's like,
But that's with,
yeah, that's
all
from
of them,
adopted, yeah.
right?
That's
Because
gonna
of
be
the raise.
consistent through every
Right,
department.
okay.
So
So,
it's actually a 1.65% if you
Increase.
would the amended amount.
and the 1.65 is really because we brought in more inexpensive labor, which is why it's not 2.25, which is what the GWI.
That's all I had.
Anything?
Just as an aside, on the tipping fees for Willamette, was it Willamette Waste? Where it gets dumped off?
The recycling or the garbage?
Recycling.
Recycling is going to Willimantic Waste.
Did that fire impact any of this? If we had a big fire? on the-
Well, first of all, the fire happened in the bulky waste, not the recycling. So the fire didn't have anything to do with it, and, no, none of that fire didn't have anything to do with
Didn't affect anything for us?
that, it did not.
The reason why the recycling market has disappeared in America, I think we've explained this over the years, is China used to get all our recycled materials, and they don't accept them anymore. And then it's just the sheer cost and the volume of recycled materials coming at these people.
Well, glass is a cost for recycling. They don't want it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the stuff that they don't want. We actually, hopefully, people aren't getting tags on their recycling cans, but we've been inspecting about 100 cans a day and tagging them off because people are throwing, pillows and all kinds of, they'll
Yeah.
throw a TV in the recycling can. Well, that's not recycling for the can. That's to go to the. It just
Yeah.
that stuff goes in the goes up to Willimantic and they reject our loads.
Wow. It's good to know. That's it for me.
Questions down the line?
No, I'm good.
Could you go back to 211, please?
Yep.
And you mentioned that there you were going to shift some of the cost over to water and sewer.
Correct.
And what would that be? Are you
So-
talking
so right-
positions?
Well, it's the deputies. Right in the present budget right now, the deputy is charged in the 18-19 budget, is charged 75% to this line and
Mhm.
25% to water. Next fiscal year, we're proposing to charge the deputy to 60% to the town, 20% to water, and 20% to sewer. Because the volume of projects on the sewer and the water side, which Bill excels at and Bill's gonna be working on, makes it fair to everyone that more of his salary goes over, which is better for the town, and it's gonna be utilized on the utility side.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm happy to see the tree warden budget increased. I think that has been underfunded for several years as far as the needs of the entire town are concerned. And it's my understanding that the tree warden is also supposed to approve any trees that are cut on town property.
That's correct.
And so this budget will cover that.
It should. It's always hard to guess what the tree warden budget's gonna be, because you don't know how many calls are coming in. And if we go over this budget, I have to dip into road recon. You have to cut down the trees if you have a safety tree, so.
Right.
But that's the best guess, is the 33,000 is more indicative of what the budget should be than 23.
I noticed that the utility companies have been doing a lot of cutting of the trees.
Correct.
And
And they're gonna do more.
And unfortunately, this may be something that we need to ask, but they are leaving quite a mess behind. They're they're not cleaning up.
Yeah.
And I don't want that responsibility to fall to the tree warden, because I don't think it's our responsibility. But if you look at certain areas of town, they've done a lot of cutting, and they just leave the mess.
The mess wouldn't be left to the tree warden, it'd be left to us, the tree warden, Bill Jazerski, but, I mean, the highway department. The only reason I say that I would like to work with Eversource is because there's many times in a year that no one even really knows that I call up Eversource and I ask them to take down trees that are near a line. That really is our responsibility, so we're kind of going back and forth with Eversource all the time. So if they cut a lot of our trees, but we can pick them up on the ground, it's gonna be kind of a give or take, because the town's still gonna be ahead. But I do appreciate that we don't wanna have absorbing a lot of responsibility on their part.
Well, as I said, I'm pleased to see that budget increased, and I know that it's not the tree warden's responsibility, but I've noticed that a lot of the overhangs have been taken care of this year, the overhang branches and things.
We give him a list of roads that we've asked him to work on, and that's why that's happened.
I'm glad to see that. Under the bulky waste, that's $296.
Yep.
And this is the vehicle that you want to acquire. Is the total cost of that vehicle in this line item, or is it divided?
So, there's 140 in the line item,
Yes.
100 is to the bulky waste tipping fee, and 40,000 is to the vehicle. The vehicle is gonna cost about 179, 180,000. With the interest, it's gonna be around 2. So it's gonna be through the vehicle acquisition, 200 divided by 5 is 40. So it's 1/5 of the total cost, just like a vehicle acquisition would happen.
So we're going to see that later on in another
It's-
section
it's-
of the budget.
It's gonna be identified in the vehicle acquisition, but it's actually, unless Anna tells me differently, I don't know of any time we bought a vehicle in this town and through vehicle acquisition where it's been run through operating, it's always run through capital.
Right.
And I'd rather had it here, because once we get the truck, I'm gonna save the money in this account. So I wanted to make sure that we funded it, so I was willing to put it through my budget, which is flat. So that's why it's there.
Okay, I thought that was a departure from what we normally do.
It is correct.
It is a little bit of a difference, yeah.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
And so the total of that then is going to be, what did you tell me the total would be?
Well, the truck itself is about 164, and then I have in the budget to get 2 roll-offs, and then we're gonna continue to buy, and we're gonna look into used ones as well, because we need to start building up our stock, so we have 6 or 8 roll-offs. So it's about 165 in the truck, and another 15,000 in roll-offs, for a total of about 180. The interest would bring that up to about 200, which is about 40,000 a year.
And that will still have to make at least 1 trip a day.
It would probably be at least 2 trips a day, because not only are we're gonna be bringing their cycling up, but we also want to bring the bulky waste up. And that, if you ever see 161, the Willimantic trucks are coming 2-3 times a day. If we make 2-3 runs a day consistently, then we'll be able to keep up.
So what happens to washing machines, dryers, that sort of thing? Is that included under bulky waste?
No, but they get, washing machines and dryers actually get thrown in scrap metal. I mean, they're metal. We get paid for those. If it's a refrigerator, it sits on the pad and they have to take the Freon out of it. And once the Freon, we throw it into scrap metal.
So none of that cost will be offset by this?
None of the
We'll
costs. none of the
We
costs.
will still pay for that, it's not covered under this line?
The cost of bulky waste is in line 296.
Okay, right,
I have, it's, I want to say it's about 900 tons a year that we send to Willimantic at whatever their tipping fee. I think it's $78 a ton right now.
Okay, I think that's it for me.
Mark, one
Yes,
additional
yes,
question.
sir.
Joe, the $140 pull rate that you said for bulky waste, is that just the vehicle to move it, or does that include the tipping fee for?
No, that's the
roll-off?
vehicle to move it.
So it's $140 per trip.
Yeah, and the problem is, they might be moving 3 tons or 5 tons. To them, they don't care.
Right.
We're gonna start, we're gonna be designing some kind of ram into these things that's gonna be packing these things down, because it behooves us to be bringing up 5 to 6 ton loads than 3 ton. I mean, they just pick up whatever we call for, so, but it's just the cost of the pull. We still have to pay, still have to pay the $78 a ton for the bulky, and, we don't have to pay recycling, because SCARE is gonna be picking up that cost.
So at 2 to 3 trips a day on average with Wilmanic, you're talking $300 to $450 a cost that's gonna be
Cost savings.
cost savings. $2,500 a week times 50 weeks. Well, your return on the investment of the vehicle won't take that long.
And you're not
Especially
even.
if you're not
and
gonna use any extra labor.
You're
to be able to drive it back
you're
and
absolutely
forth.
correct. It is gonna take one of our drivers, there will be gas to go up, but the gas is offset, because we're already driving
You're already
our.
driving.
And my goal is to, right now, we're turning the garbage trucks over every like 3-4 years or something like that. I'm trying to spread it out, and if I can spread an extra year out of our automated loaders at 300,000, we're gonna save the town money. Because this truck costs half as much as an automated loader, so it's just smart to do it this way.
So you'll be dumping garbage in a roll-off and then taking it up by sending the
Dumping,
Truck up.
recycling in the roll-off.
recycling in the roll-off.
And the bulky waste. The residents drop the stuff in the bulky. The residents also drop stuff in the recycling, but I can send my recycling truck up and dump it into a roll-off, and then they can keep going back and picking. Because what I'd like to get is ultimately, in the next year or two, I'd really like to get to recycling once a week and not twice a week. Because we get a lot of calls. They have more recycling than they have garbage, but I don't have enough trucks. So this is gonna help. It's gonna free up my trucks to be in East Lyme and not driving all around the world.
Very good, thank you.
I do have one question that I missed. Under, let's see, it's the next line after line 500, it's 500 programs. The transportation subsidy,
Yep.
what is the source of that?
That's a SCARA formula, and because you noticed on the best way to answer it is back in the expenditures, the SCARA tipping fee is going from 580,000 to 592,000. That's showing that that's increasing. Well, the transportation subsidy is a product of how much we send up there. So the transportation subsidy is going up as we're sending more trash up there. So yeah, because certain towns in SCARA, Stonington's one, East Lyme's one, the ones that are on the outer perimeter are the farthest ones away from their incinerator, actually get subsidized to drive our trash up there. And our subsidy is going up a little bit because our trash is upticking. We seem to be generating more trash.
Well, we're having more people build houses here. Thank you.
Any other
Yeah.
questions? Okay, we can flip the page. Thank you, Joe. That was very well done. Very clear, very complicated budget. So 105, as we discussed last night, some of the wage lines are gonna be off because some of these wages are 2 years' worth. This one in particular